Alrighty, it is episode 37 of the Siege Show presented by Jake and Guzz. Very quickly before we do get into the episode though, we've got a special giveaway wildcard. Our friends over at the Jester organization have given us a few skin codes to give away in celebration of the Munich Major and Rainbow Six and all. So just wanted to put that one out there. We'll have a picture or a link down below. We'll get it all. But basically, we are doing a giveaway, so make sure you get involved. Thanks very much to Wildcard for their generosity. And over to the Munich Major is immediately where we go, guys. It was an event where, I mean, a couple of surprises. I think largely from a competition standpoint, one of the best majors we've ever had. Certainly shortfalls elsewhere, which we'll touch on. But, I mean, straight away, when you have only the 16 teams, you're naturally going to see that competition be at its highest point, and I think we got that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, pretty much from the get-go, it was pretty cutthroat, and even probably as early as day number 2, I think we had a pretty good gauge on where a lot of teams were kind of at, and the stakes were already quite high. Yeah, I mean, just the big takeaways from me, there's probably twofold. I'm sure there's plenty more, but the two that really just jumped to my mind are, one, again, Falcons, they make it to another main circuit final, and they flounder, they fall at that final hurdle. And then second, of course, coming from APAC ourselves, APAC, again, just absolutely underperforming. Probably even... Well, definitely more so than I predicted going into this event. I was pretty hot on APAC, probably anticipating at least 2 teams to make it through. And that was far from the case in the end.
I think that goes to the first point, which is, who was the most disappointing, right? And for me, I mean, you're naturally going to look at, the 2 teams that went 0-3. There was maybe only one team that I wouldn't have said I was disappointed if they went 0-3. That would have been Enterprise for many various reasons. But for CAG, the run that they had at the major qualifier LAN, their form up to that point and going into the major, I expected a hell of a lot more. For Space Station, I mean, disappointing just for the sake of a North American team that has made deep runs in previous tournaments to finish 0-3, not ideal. And when you kind of look at the teams they played, BDS, Wildcard, NIP, like you're not playing the mega teams. Those teams aren't bad, and I think that's kind of what we got into with the preview for the major with only 16 teams in it, but naturally you should be beating at least maybe one of those. They didn't. 0-3 for SSG is really not ideal. And yeah, Enterprise actually surprised me when they beat Weibo to kick things off. They were very competitive in all their games, guys. 5-7 loss to W7M, 5-7 loss to Wildcard, and went 1-2, took a map off Furia. I think they can hold their heads high and certainly wouldn't be in the, APAC disappointing camp. Shopify Rebellion, probably expected more from them, losing out to NIP, losing out to Weibo. And D+, it kind of shocked everyone at the start when they beat Furia. And then from there, they kind of went out with a bit of a whimper. So, like, those are the
tough run though too. Like
tough run, Falcons phase G2, absolutely.
Rough,
but they got smashed in all of those, right? Whereas in comparison to like Enterprise, who were competitive, so that list that I just mentioned, all of those teams 0-3 or 1-3 in a 16-team competition, then your 2-3s naturally. I know they don't make top 8. I know they don't make the main stage, but for Weibo, BDS, W7M. There are some okay takeaways.
Yeah, I think BDS probably walks away one of those 3 that have probably surpassed expectation a little bit. I think they are a team that generally are a little bit more slept on. Comparatively, W7M, a lot of people were really hot on them naturally given the SAL bias, and Weibo were considered by many, and probably us included, to be not only the best team from APAC at the event, and in some regards, of course, they've been able to achieve that, but also to then go on main stage deep run. I mean, I think top 4 was even thrown around at times at them being a potential at their best. And whilst I don't think they had a super poor tournament, they didn't play at that 100%, and I'm intrigued to see how they then track going forward. As for any other takeaways from the bottom half, I think I was actually looking through the comments on the preview, and a lot of people were really hot on Shopify, and maybe a little bit critical of our assessment on them or lack thereof, because I don't think we touched on them a ton. Yeah, they just completely underperformed at this event. It's just another example, I think, of a super team that hasn't been able to play as a team. And so I think regional finals for them is essentially a must do well scenario, right? Like I think a top 2 or something is pretty much their road to SI now outside of LCQ. So a lot of pressure on those guys.
And we'll be touching on all of the regional final implications as well, and the ramifications from the Munich major that got alongside it with the SI points. But moving on to the top 8 now, and kind of, I guess, making our way up the leaderboard, if you will. So then you kind of had your 3-2 teams, Furia, NIP, G2. Is it fair to say I'm not too surprised by NIP? I mean, like, when we did the preview, I haven't gone back, watched it. I could be totally wrong here, but, you know, I would have kind of labeled them as a sleeper dark horse kind of team. I think I remember saying that, was it EWC that they actually played and did quite well without having, like, the most deep run. I was like, oh, these guys actually are here to play. And I think they backed that up nicely in Munich and deserved their top 8 finish. Furia kind of snuck through. The sleeping Brazilian giants like to start slow and then they wake up and they kind of just steamroll through. But you kind of look at their run, 2-0 over CAG, Enterprise pushed them, and then 2-0 over W7M to get in, which was a fascinating best of 3 for those two teams, one having to miss out, one to go through. I think for Furia, where they're kind of placed throughout the Swiss stage isn't really probably to their best, and I guess now continuing on, just a team that you always feel like they can get back to their best, and then they kind of just fall short of that. Do they make roster changes in future? Certainly not anytime soon, but maybe on the horizon if they can't have a big SI. For G2, I mean, talk about a team that is so hot and cold, no pun intended to hot and cold the player, but I think their best for G2 is just so wildly entertaining, first and foremost. I think when we have to consider esports and sports in general as an entertainment product, they bring it. Stompen brings it. He has the viewership. They have the viewership. I thought Doki was like incredibly entertaining to the point where I would almost label Doki as, for me, the most entertaining player of the tournament. Just his shit talk, his performances in the server, flashy plays, clutch plays. I thought he was sensational and couldn't sing his praises high enough. And G2 as a team just have to try and find a way to get it all to click. And that team can be successful. But Wildcard certainly impressed. I mean, I remember for Reload, it was sort of like, is Wildcard a team that would be at these events, be at a major? I remember vividly saying, no, I don't think that team would be. Lo and behold, throughout the year, they've just gotten better and better, and they take that dark horse run and they run with it. And Wildcard were incredibly entertaining as well. Baby Shark as a story and as a player on the come up. And those are the takeaways for me from this event, is just the entertainment factor of some of the new age players starting to take the spotlight, if you will. Stompen and Baby Shark, for instance, I thought really just dominated headlines.
Yeah, I mean, Wildcard's an intriguing storyline, obviously going on to then lose to the eventual winners. A tough matchup for them. I very much agree with the assessment that heading into this back half of the year, the question mark was more so, can they make majors, not have deep runs at them? So to achieve that is really good for those guys, and I still think there's a lot of growth potential for that team as well. So they're definitely not going to have a potential advantage. I don't think they would have had it much at this particular event, more so probably Reload, but teams will not underestimate them going forward, so they can't be risking any kind of complacency because they'll quickly find themselves getting caught out. I don't really think there's too much more I want to touch on for those teams in that group. I suppose looking at the rest of the 3-1s and the 3-0s, FaZe, Secret, Falcons, M80, I think in retrospect, a lot of those teams pretty much anticipated to be somewhere in that 3-0 or 3-1 range. I think for me, the biggest question mark was actually probably on M80. Can they back up that dominance from NAL and actually transpose that to an international result? And I mean, 7-5 G2, 7-2 FaZe, and then a 2-1 Secret was very, very convincing. So yeah, that was good to see. Of course, things didn't quite go their way in the upper bracket semi. They get booted down 2-0, and then we were like, oh shit, M80 have lost to themselves, they're going to shit the bed. But then in classic Fabian fashion, when they hit that wall, and we saw that a couple of times throughout their matches in the lower bracket, he was a big highlight, a big talking point around this event was those tactical timeouts and just how intense they were. I'm trying to remember, but I feel like a lot of coaches at this event almost exclusively discuss tactical decisions, correcting errors, talking about fundamentals, formulating a strat for the next round. Fabian took a very different approach. He backed in his preparation. He knew that his team knew what to do. It was more so just waking them up and getting to actually play as a team and motivate them and encourage them. And, some of that tough love that he's known for. And it sometimes doesn't get responded well to, depending on the kind of team or coach that you are. But if there's any coach in the world that can muster that and, can command that kind of respect, it's definitely him. And I think it was a big reason why they were able to turn around some of those results in the lower bracket. There are a couple of times where it really started to look quite grim for them, but they were able to somehow fight back, which I think makes their run at this major one of the most impressive that we've probably seen.
And I think this is where I want to sort of touch on, and following on from your point, whether this was brought up or not at the major from the analysts, certainly don't think it would have been by the casters, but they lost the opening map. So throughout the finals bracket, every single best of 3 except the grand final, which obviously was a best of 5. So you think about from a coach perspective, right? There's 2 ways you can look at it. If you want to, kind of be on the fence, you can say, well, are they prepared enough going into these series? And certainly there's always the cases of what was the map veto if you want to, dive deeper into it. But they lost the first map to FaZe in the upper bracket, ultimately went on to lose that 2-0. They lost the first map to Secret, came back 1-2 straight. Lost the first map to Wildcard, came back 1-2 straight. Lost the first map to FaZe, came back 1-2 straight. Now, again, that's a decent sample size. That's 4 games. That's 4 fucking best of 3s. That's a hefty sample size. 2 ways you can look at it. You can say, were they prepared enough going into the series for that first map, or finding the more positive spin, and certainly the one that matters the most since they won the whole event, was the bounce back and the coach input game day. You've lost the first map, you're heading back to the locker room, going into the next map, what's the talk, what's the strategy, etc. Clearly had a positive effect, clearly, to do it 4 times straight, to win 2 maps straight after being 1 down, facing elimination the entire way through, lower bracket quarter, lower bracket semi, and lower bracket final. Like, that is a testament to Fabian and the team for their ability to deal with adversity and the bounce back factor. I mean, it needs to be noted that it's not just a case of they won the event. They did it, and they did it in a way that was not easy. And funnily enough, continues this weird trend of the lower bracket team continuing to win these events.
Yeah, I think in some ways it really does actually build up the resilience of a team, and once you kind of face that pressure once or twice, it doesn't become as much of a factor perhaps a little bit later on. I don't know how much of a mental differential that may have been in that grand final, especially for Falcons, given that they've been in repeated positions where they've made a grand final and lost, and it happens again and again and again. I can't help but feel that it does take a bit of a toll in comparison to M80, who have kind of fought out of the trenches and be like, oh, we've got nothing to lose at this point. So there's literally zero pressure and expectation on us to do well in the lower bracket final and the grand final itself. And I mean, that's the kind of environment that they thrive in with their sort of play style, where, again, technically speaking and mechanically, like, they're really strong and went into this event with that expectation to do well, but the asterisk was always on, can they keep their mental in check? Can they, ensure that they're listening off the calls, etc. And there were times, I can't remember who they were playing, but we casted them. It was on Consulate. I'd love to remember who they were playing against, where it was like 1 or 2 particular attacks where it looked really shocking because they were completely disjointed. They were all trying to, force plays. Yeah, M80. And I was like, damn, if they play like this going forward, like, they're going to get shit on. But then you flip that to some of the best Siege we saw from the event, and it was really indicative that they were the best team there. So their ability to flick that switch and, if things are starting to go sour, reset is a really critical skill. And it's one that a lot of teams don't really possess, not to that level that we saw at this event anyway.
And also for the M80 boys, we'll wrap on them. Somehow kind of skipped a couple of things, but, I still recall Manchester and talking about Beast Coast. I said it was a fluke. And credit to them. What is it? The same 4 out of 5 players, right? So I think everyone but Kino. That's 2 majors out of 3. It's not a fluke. Absolutely.
Can they take the next step though? That's the biggest question.
That is obviously going to be a question, but obviously. I don't think, to me, like, do they deserve to have the pressure of being an SI favorite? Like, and this is the funny part of it, because if you say no, well, then you truly then deep down believe they don't deserve to have maybe won these majors, or that their best is maybe not the best enough to be able to win a hammer. But if you say yes, then it puts a bit of pressure on them, doesn't it? Because you won Manchester. I know that was start of 24, so that was a bit of time ago. You've now won Munich, so the major going into SI. I think there has to be a level of expectation. There just naturally has to be. Plus the aura, Fabian, and M80 is a big organization. So I think absolutely going into 6 Invitational, there is now expectation pressure on that team. No more, Cinderella story in Manchester. No more backing up the fluke in Munich. Now we are an established team looking to win the ultimate prize. And a team that did win that, of course, back in Boston was FaZe. I mean, they kind of closed out Munich in a okay suit. 2-1 loss to Falcons in the upper bracket final, 2-1 loss in the lower bracket final, which was, close. It was a great series. I don't think they're going to walk away from this completely displeased. Top 3 finish. They've qualified already for 6 Invitational, and they'll look for back-to-back hammers. So I think they'll be fine. And sorry, we already kind of touched a little bit on Falcons, but it is set up more than any other movie set up for Falcons to finally win a final at the 6 Invitational
if they make another
Paris.
final, if they make the Paris, Grand Final in front of their home crowd,
they have to win it.
Lose that? They
have to win it.
They are never doing it. They are never doing it.
That
would be the perfect storyline is for them to go to Paris, make the grand final. They're like 0-2 down or some shit, and they bring it back. That would be cinema. That would be W script.
I do believe that if they were to make the Paris grand final and lose, that team...
They're done.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you classify done is. I don't know what you classify
done in the sense that I just don't know if they could ever bring themselves.
That same core 5's done.
I don't think they'll ever have the confidence to win a final. I don't think they would be a bad team. I don't even know if they would make changes or like what the outlook would be. But if that happens, like, in what world do they ever make a final and actually win it? Like, how many more chances?
I think they will. I'm going super early. I think it's all set up. It's too Hollywood script. Falcons will overcome the final.
Falcons v M80 rematch. Fabian wants another hammer. The Falcons home crowd.
France versus
that'd be a perfect final.
It would be. All right. So I think that's pretty much put a decent bow on Munich. The one last thing is maybe regarding viewership, game sentiment. We saw obviously a lot of things about like Safe Siege. Certain numbers were down, and I think that there's probably a couple of reasons for these things. Firstly, I think when it comes to the viewership, for a long time, Jinxie really propped up the viewership numbers, right? Like, and now that he's off doing fucking Clash Royale or whatever he's up to these days, whatever Zoomer kids he's trying to entertain, that's naturally going to have an effect, right? Like, that's just going to be a bump down. So I think the numbers that we got probably for Munich are actually more across the sort of numbers that maybe we should have been having over the last couple of events, right? Like, kind of like minus Jinxie sort of numbers. So therefore, I don't actually think any number drops that I've personally seen are actually as bad as maybe it would look without context. It's still not ideal, and considering the fact that it was a super entertaining, super high quality event, I thought the stage design was fantastic. The themes, the rising of the water, clearly a lot of thought was put into it. I thought the crowd was great, especially on grand final day. Friday they were a little bit quiet, as most of them usually are, and then Saturday got really good, especially for M80 phase. But yeah, I mean, I can't find too many negatives. But if you want to dig deep in, yes, certainly a couple of numbers went down, and you had the whole Save Siege campaign, which anytime you see those kind of I guess I'd consider like protests, does it come from a good place? And the answer to that is just simply yes. I mean, they want the game to be good and thriving. Are there better ways of going about things? Yeah, maybe. But, clearly the hope is that Ubisoft is receptive. From my understanding, everything's kind of been receptive, and the goal for all involved, players, staff, Ubi, developers, is to just kind of see the game rebound a little bit. But I always find that it's not as bad as things seem. There's probably some movie quote in there that you could use. But truthfully, I don't think it's as bad as things seem. That's my take on it. But that's not to say that I don't think certain things could use, improving.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in full agreement. Yeah, it was disappointing to see viewership go down, but I think adding that context is obviously important. In terms of the stage design, the event execution, the theming, the crowd, all of that, I think was actually very positive. And I mean, the only other major that we've worked as a point of comparison was Montreal, and I would say at least in a direct comparison to that, it was definitely a step up. Obviously, that was actually our last official major as well. So yeah, I think it was overall a really strong event, and whilst there was some of that negative sentiment, I don't think it's going to have too much impact either way. I don't think it's going to create too much more negative sentiment. I also don't think it's going to lead to much change in the game that wasn't already pre-planned for things like the reveal and plans into year 11, etc. either. Maybe it will have in some regards. I'm not entirely sure. From what I heard as well, the reception's been relatively positive as well. So at the end of the day, like you're alluding to, everyone wants the same goal, which is the game to do well. The developers want to keep their job. The players want to keep playing the game. The community wants a game that's more entertaining to play, like etc., etc., etc. And Ubisoft, whether they execute on that or not is irrelevant. The end goal or the ongoing goal really is for that to always happen, and has always been the case. The analogy I would kind of use for Siege, and this applies to pretty much every live service game. You've seen it. You see it with Apex, CS, League, etc. It's a little bit like the stock market. Like the game quality and sentiment is going to go up and down over time. But generally speaking, over a long span of time, the quality of the game does actually increase. Like you compare Siege to... it's interesting, right? Like I saw a couple of tweets, or one tweet the other day. It's like people were saying they want the game to go back to Void Edge. If you go back like 5 years, the sentiment of the game was even worse than it was now. So like nostalgia and all of that and recency bias plays a huge role, I think, in how live service games are perceived.
20-second meta, games too slow, games boring.
Yeah. You could nitpick good and bad from every season or every year, every decade of this game at this point. Hopefully it continues to improve. There's obviously issues that need to be resolved. Hopefully the most recent operation is a step towards remedying some of that.
And you even look at like the big, titles. Sometimes people can, if you're in a bubble, and you're in that Rainbow Six bubble, and you don't really know much else about other titles outside of it, you might think that, what's happening here doesn't happen elsewhere. But like even in Counter-Strike, for instance, which is probably the biggest FPS title, there's a lot of people that, CS2 copped a lot of flack. They claim that...
it still does. They haven't had an operation release. The anti-cheat is still shit. They just tanked the fucking skin market by 30%.
You can't play
it's not without issue either.
In CS2 without running into a spin botter. You have to go to face it. You have bot servers that are propping up numbers. Valve at any moment can decide to just nuke your CS inventory. Like there are issues in... And to put a bow on this, go to any game, type in something about it that's negative, you will find it. Like, that's something that needs to be remembered a little bit. That's not all doom and gloom. That's the biggest thing. Every game is,
and that's not to. That's again, so we don't get like clipped out of context or taken out of context. That's not to say that issues shouldn't be resolved. It's not to say that Siege is perfect, etc., etc. But we have been here before. We've been here before. I've been playing this game since the beta.
Get us 1 million views.
We will be fine. We will be okay.
Bring on the hate.
Hopefully, unless Ubisoft goes bankrupt. Point stressing about it. That's my outlook, at least.
Alrighty, and very quickly, we'll touch on Operation Tenfold Pursuit, which is maybe not the biggest operation, right? And I think this probably continues on into this. You know, you got people that don't like reworked operators. My view on this, actually, very quickly, is that like there comes a point with these kind of games, and you look at League of Legends as an example. When I played League of Legends, showing my age here, back in 2011, they were releasing heroes almost weekly.
If I had $1 for every time you told me.
But I'm just saying. So like when we get things like reworks, believe it or not, they are actually good for the game. And I know it sucks that no shiny new toy or whatever.
Well, okay, I'm gonna guess what point you're going to, like, and rudely interrupt here.
Do it.
You either get to the point where you have 50 characters that do a very similar thing, or you rework previous characters and improve them. Like, that's basically the route you eventually go down. Like, you can try and introduce more creative operators. And in a game like Siege, we've kind of seen that recently. And most of them end up being niche pocket picks that don't really add value to the game anyway. At least not outside of maybe a competitive setting. So they could have just added a new operator and fucking called it whatever and kept Thatcher shit as he is now. Or they could try and reinvent the wheel with him a little bit. I don't know what people would prefer. I honestly don't even know what I would prefer. Maybe it would be better to be a new character, but that increases workload in all other areas of development as well, which would take away from other areas. So it's just, I think, a compromise as to where we're at. I guess maybe actually the better question for this, because I know it riled up quite a bit of discussion, because arguably now, people are saying IQ is useless, right? With the new Thatcher rework. Should it have maybe been on IQ and left Thatcher as is, was maybe just tweak some numbers instead on the EMPs.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're getting into now is about the viability of Thatcher and its impact on the meta. And, very quickly, I think, again, reworks are good, but you are allowed to question if the rework itself is good, right? Sure. Like, that's the thing. And Thatcher's rework, firstly, was it needed? I mean, it's all subjective, is it not? I think the issue with Thatcher was immediately when secondary EMP grenades came in. It was sort of like, well, we don't really need Thatcher as much anymore, and Thatcher's just like a safer, stronger bet rather than relying on secondary util. So you've got to kind of change him to be able to be more than just throwing a electrified Pokeball, right? So I think having kind of just looked at the rework, what it stands out to me as, and this actually goes probably for the operation as a whole, it's not, to me, the sort of rework that's got pro play in mind, and it's more about the accessibility of Rainbow Six Siege and to be able to come in and play an operator and have impact. So if, let's say, you get Little Timmy, Little Timmy's never played Thatcher before, but he's 40-year-old grown man teammates are screaming at him, get on Thatcher, I need you to open the wall. And he's like, all right, I get on. And little Timmy gets on Thatcher. And he's like, well, now what do I do? Where do I throw this? What do I do? Now, on the rework Thatcher, it's like little Timmy's got himself...
You can find the gadgets. Yeah.
An easier way to be able to execute the operator and what it does. That makes him more viable. That makes... Well, I say him as I'm talking about little Timmy here. That makes him more of a viable teammate. And it also means that for the other guys, like, they're actually going to get some use out of their teammate, whereas maybe before... We've got a Thatcher who's just throwing EMPs and he's got no idea what they do or how they work. And that goes as well, by the way, with the hard breach buffs / changes, where my first view on those changes were, again, not about pro play, but about people getting in and playing the game, having an easier time, especially for that, like solo queuing, for instance. I mean, you want, like, I look at like the hard breach role as almost like a tank role in World of Warcraft. Again, loving my little cross game references, but it's not a role that people flock to and they're like, fuck yeah, I want to be a hard breacher. Like, sure, there are people out there that want to do that, but it's not naturally the sort of role that I envision a lot of people really want to go and do. Well, guess what? We'll give some quality of life buff changes that make it easier for solo queue people as well to be able to actually not only help your team, but also help yourself. And I think that's where a lot of these changes, and Thatcher included in that, is what they potentially had in mind. I could be completely wrong. I haven't spoken to the developers, but to me, that seems like their goal for this particular operation. If that's something they're keeping up, I think it's a good thing overall, by the way. I think that if that's something they're going to push with further in future, to make a game that's already quite complex more accessible is a win.
I mean, they've been working towards that for years now. How many updates have we had with things like tutorials and like the milestone unlocks? And I mean, I could go on and on. AI playlists being expanded even further. Like, it's a really concerted effort. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, so I'll kind of leave the point here. But I have seen discussion, is the current downfall of Siege, or whatever, however you want to frame it, is that because they're catering too much towards casuals and driving away existing players? I don't know if I really agree with that point, but it's an interesting one to keep in the back of our minds. Circling back, though, to Thatcher, a really interesting kind of thing that arises every time an operator is reworked or released or announced or whatever is, how strong are they going to be? Will they be overpowered? Will they suck, etc.? Everyone kind of theory crafting. It's been quite interesting. I remember we were actually in an Uber with Rexon on the way to the event one day, and he was talking about, his experience with the operator in the workshops, etc. And he seemed to be pretty convinced that the operator was trash. That you look at, I've seen the online sentiment for the operator and some of the kind of tricks he can do, etc. And many people kind of theorizing that he could be the next, big thing. So it's just merely an observation and not really an opinion, but it's just always intriguing to see pre-release the speculation around an operator and how good or bad they may end up being. I don't really know where I stand. I think in some niche instances he'll be good, but I don't see him being, an all-rounder like, old Thatcher may have been.
Once you get to my age, guys, you realize you can't guess this shit. You really can't. Operator comes out and you think it's going to be the most amazing
It's really
thing ever.
hard.
Never gets played. Operator think fucking sucks, ends up being permabanned. Like, it's very difficult to ascertain until it's in a live environment. It's been tweaked with, it's been played with. And certainly, don't get me wrong. Firstly, people are always going to have their early opinions, and as they should, it creates speculation. It's good. And 9 times out of 10, pro players are certainly going to have a pretty good gauge on these things. I would imagine the way that I would look at it from a pro player's perspective is, do the changes help them? Probably not really all that much, right? So again, I'm looking at it as like there's the game and there's the esport. And Thatcher for the esport is very much that unknown quantity, or it's shit. It's not coming out of the gates as like, oh my God, this thing's going to be broken, or it's going to be middle. No, it's either going to be shit or it's going to be in the middle. Or it could be amazing. Again, it's like, you don't know. But I think for the actual game, that's just going to be really good. I actually genuinely think he'll get to the point of even bans. Again, I'm not talking esport. I'm talking your ranked games, your casual, I'm talking about the game. I think he'll be good. And people will be more receptive to playing him because of what his new kit actually brings to the table.
And the hard bridge.
And all of that applies to the hard bridge.
Support roles in general have been given some love, which is good.
Yep.
The consequence of that being that hopefully the enjoyment and attacking win rate can increase a little as well. So
yeah, needed.
Yeah, I think they're very much needed.
Yep.
And again, if the needle goes too far one way, then maybe look at adjusting Bandit. I mean, Mute obviously got some changes which are intriguing, Kaid, etc. Like, there's plenty of tools now. We're at the point now, fortunately, where we do have so many operators, some of which do overlap in terms of how they actually kind of operate, but enough to the point where the tools are there to balance.
I did find the reveal funny with the exothermic Mute interaction, where it showed the Mute gem was like this was on like border, and like the Mute gem was like outside. And the thermite's like standing in, like, when would this ever happen? But anyway, it's a way to show off, obviously, the way that they've kind of changed the coding really more than anything. And the last thing they did change was, of course, Fortress, which is going to come into the map pool. Will be replacing Skyscraper.
Yay.
Yeah, I actually saw a lot of sentiment. People didn't want Skyscraper to be like the insta removal. There were a couple of other maps that people weren't a fan of, but I think that's natural. Well, it's natural, right? You got like a 9 map pool and you take like 1,000 people, you're going to probably get all 9 maps mentioned, right? Like it's just the normal way of going about it. But yeah, I have no issue with Skyscraper being removed. I think it's just such a vanilla played map in the sense that every round feels almost the same on every site. Not too much of a different approach. It's just very slow tempo, not the greatest pacing. Stylistically, it's fine. I can't talk too much about the Fortress rework, guys, if I'm going to be completely honest. I know we had the show match that was played, but it's a show match. I need to see some vision. I need to see it come in, and you know, I'm kind of excited. I feel like we haven't had a change since Lair came in. I kind of want to go into this a little bit like fresher. I'd obviously do the prep, do the work of, you know, learning the map and you know, for job purposes. But I'm just excited to kind of just have something that's new, fresh, like a fresh coat of paint. When we get into a Fortress game, we're like, hell yeah, we're like, finally, Fortress, here we go. Rather than like, oh my god, it's Skyscraper again. Oh my god, it's Cafe again. And I think that's what the game needs as well. Is just like, it needs some reinvigorating. Like, I don't agree with the fact that the timing of this map pool change, but I think that what I would like to see them do is essentially like, and this is for the whole game, post SI, like change up the map pool, like 2-3 maps every time. I think that's the way it should be.
I think the biggest problem is we went to a 9 map pool in the anticipation that it would somehow generate more variety and excitement, and I think it's just led to being more stale. I would much prefer a system where it consolidates down to 7, and then we have 2 out, 2 in.
Yep. The
day after 6 Invitational Grand Final. Like,
yep.
What is preventing that from happening?
Or even 3.
I think 9 maps. 9 maps is just too. Like 9 maps in total is just too many. No other esport does 9 maps. They're all 7 for a reason. As far as I understand, like CS is the best reference, but
you could do 2. So you could do 2 in, 2 out after every SI, right? But let's say a new map actually comes out, and that new map, like let's say it's like, I don't know, after a major or whatever, and it's like super viable. Maybe you can do like a 2-1. So you do 2.
That would happen
SI
once every.
And you would do 1 maybe
once every second year. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, then you just have a third that year, or maybe you only do 1 in anticipation or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but that just needs to be a system that's like implemented and also known. Like right now, I genuinely and I work on the product, have no fucking idea when the next changes are, what they look like, how many, like what are the maps, like is Outback coming in, like, you know, we got Emerald Plains, like fucking is Yacht coming in, like we got no information, no idea.
Bring Oregon back.
I've always been an Oregon lover, but I think people, I mean, like, and this is the thing as well, like, you know, do you take Clubhouse out and bring Oregon in? That's a pretty good 1-for-1 swap, I think. You got maps that can play pretty similar or have similar themes, vibes. So, yeah, I mean, regardless of how it's done, something needs to be done. And it needs to be something that everyone who follows the esports landscape knows about. That they know full well and can speculate and be like, hey, you know, in 6 months, SI finishes, what do we think the map changes are going to be? Do we think it's going to be these 2 out and these 2 in? There's a Coastline and Villa in next year, you know, and it gets people talking, it gets people engaged. And then also, if a map becomes quite stale and shit, it's very easy to then just take it out. Like it's
exactly because you only have a 7 map pool.
We actually did this with Theme Park, by the way. Remember Theme Park came back for like how long? And then they took it back out again.
And I think having 7 would just give you the ability to better take maps in or out because you're not trying to shovel 9 in.
Yeah. And at the end of the day,
even if you've only got like 10 or 11 in total.
All the teams and all the players are in the same playing field. Like,
yeah, exactly. And you give them enough notice.
Well, the best teams that are able to prep and prepare and adjust will be the best teams.
And I think, again, kind of just to round off the point, is that now under the yearly format where we actually have a proper break after 6 Invitational, there's now that incentive and the ability to actually do it. It's not like you're changing the map pool and giving the teams 2 weeks to prep. You're giving them ample time to prepare for stage 1.
Right, it's like 2 maps. Like, you guys get, paid professionals outside of OS. Yeah. Anyway, we'll wrap that up. We're getting a little bit long here. We've got one last talking point to go over, which is a pretty big one, by the way. Regional finals, which begin actually incredibly soon for Europe and North America. I believe they actually both start around the same time. I could be wrong. May have actually even started by the time this comes out, but very briefly looking at the global points standing. So Falcons, Furia, and FaZe have already confirmed their place at the 6 Invitational. Congratulations to them. And along with them, those 3, of course, through points, is M80 by winning Munich. They also hold a spot. So the first 4 teams, 1 from EU, 1 from NA, and 2 from Brazil. Feels quite fitting to have FaZe, Furia already confirmed, M80, major winners, and Falcons are just a top team, top organization. So what spaces are left, right? So you've got your regional champions, so that's APL, NAL, SAL, and EML. They all have a slot. Then you've got the point standing, and then you've got LCQ for Europe, South America, North America, and APAC as well. I don't actually see... I thought China was supposed to be...
I believe they're a part of the APL qualification
APAC
format.
LCQ. Let me open that up. They are. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so GVC Pioneer Series has 2 China slots, and they'll battle... I mean, let's be honest, they're not going to fucking... I'm sorry, but they're not making
it. You never know. Hey,
they're not making it year 1. Not a chance. And if they do, APAC's in the bin. So yeah, that obviously now puts us into a position where we got quite a few SI point slots, and also the regional finals. So looking at the teams that have already got a decent amount of points, so your Weibos, your Wildcards, your G2s, your Enterprises, your Secrets, all of those teams are going to be playing in regional finals. There's only one team, by the way, guys, right now that's in a qualification spot. It's D+. They did not actually qualify for the Asia Pacific regional finals. D+ are not in. They cannot gain any more points. So they're on 550. My guess is right now 550 is not going to be in the cutoff. Surely not.
Yeah, I don't know. The way it's labeled, it says confirmed points with more obtainable. I don't know why it's highlighted like that. It's yeah, I'm confused as to how Liquipedia has actually keyed this.
Well, I don't know what page you're looking at, but D+ cannot earn any more points.
Okay. Well, if you look at Tournament Background Legend, confirmed points with more obtainable is the yellow highlight, which D+ have that yellow highlight, right? So
yeah,
where are they getting? Where's the more obtainable?
That's in relation to the actual tournament. See how the regional finals is yellow 50+. We're doing this live right now. I'm teaching you all about Liquipedia. Right. There's 2 different background legends. There's the team one, right? So D+ is yellow, and then you see how they're X with a red tournament background.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. I did the way my page is scrolled. I couldn't see the legend above it.
That's all good.
I'm actually having a look at just some of the quick ones that Sprabuni whipped up for the event. So, just for reference as well, G2 99.9%, so they'll be through. Secret 99.3, they'll be through.
Really?
NIP 90%, so they're very strong. Wildcard 99.8. So like a lot of the teams up there.
Has he got D+?
Basically locked.
That's the big one I want to know because they can't get any more points.
So he did a couple of different ones as the tournament progressed. So he did this one on the 12th. And the most recent one he did was on the 16th. D+ only listed on the one on the 12th, so I don't know how much the other results impacted this. But at that point in time, they're at 77%.
Okay. So they might... So then if they were on 550 points, like let's just say 600 is like near cutoff point, or 550 is near cutoff point. That's something to kind of keep in mind, I guess. Which means, in theory, if that's the case, Secret, Enterprise, G2, Wildcard, and Weibo, while we can't confirm them, as you kind of already alluded to in the percentages you brought up through Sprabuni.
Yeah, Weibo's 99.9, like Weibo's in.
Yeah, like they're in. Those
EP's
teams
99.1. Like basically all the teams down to D+, if you look at the standings, so basically first down to like 8th, pretty much a lock.
Yeah. Yeah.
D+, I think honestly D+ is the most intriguing one. Will they make it through on points?
Well, that's interesting though, because it kind of it makes it a little bit deflating a little bit, but I'll touch on why maybe it's not too bad. But it does mean there's only like 2-3 slots points wise for teams to like leap up and get in on points. The beauty of the regional finals though is, of course, if you win the whole fucking thing, you go straight to SI. Like you are the champion. So if you look at like a good example, I'm going to use Dark Zero as an example, right? They're on 200 points right now. They're right down that SI global standing point leaderboard. But if they can finish second, they'll get 700 points. That puts them on 900. You're basically in. You win, you're in. 400 gets them to 600 points.
Bit dicey.
And then that's going to be the dicey area. I think that's where, for me, if I had to guess, around that 600 mark is dicey, which means D+ are sweating bullets. D+ are probably in a position where at 550, they're going to need some things to go their way. But yeah, that's going to be very fascinating.
I mean, just to quickly back up on that point, another really good example similar to DZ is actually Shopify. So as you mentioned, Doug Zero on 200 plus, Shopify at 250 plus, so similar kind of range.
Mm-hmm.
On his last update, Sprabuni had them at 68%.
Really?
So it may be a case of it's kind of a toss-up between those two, depending on regional final results.
Was this during Munich?
Yeah, so this was on...
Were they still alive in the tournament?
No, they weren't. This was on the 12th of November.
68%, and they're still going to go... So, and I'm going to just take that, and we'll run it, because we're getting a little over time here, into the North America League regional finals. So Shopify Rebellion, M80, Oxygen, SSG, Dark Zero, Wildcard. Now, Shopify...
Basically, you have to finish top 3. Like, if you're like down 200, 250, you need to finish top 3, and then you're probably okay.
Oh, so basically, if they beat Space Station Gaming in that upper bracket semifinal, that's the matchup. They'll go into the upper bracket final, which means even if they lose that, that's a guaranteed top 3.
Yeah.
That's insane. Okay, so that is the beauty of the upper bracket semifinal, and that's why their percentage is so high. 68% basically means it's almost win and you're in, but lose and you're out. Like, that's the thing. It's like lose and you're out, but win and you're in. And that goes for pretty much all of the teams across all of the regions. So now that we've kind of dissected that, Shopify Rebellion versus Space Station, two teams that, let's be honest, didn't have a great Munich. One is going to have a much better time at regional finals, and the other's going to have a shit end to the year. Holy fuck! Like, you think about it, for two teams that bombed out at Munich, one of them's then going to potentially, because like you're in that upper bracket, right? You can run the gauntlet, potentially then bomb out in regional finals, and then M80 versus Oxygen. I mean, that's feels bad. Oxygen, you're getting the Munich champions off the rip. And then you might, by the way, ask like why teams who have already qualified for SI are still in here. Well, there is money, there is prize pool,
money,
and
pretty significant prize pool.
Like if M80 were to win the regional finals, I'm pretty sure it just goes to the second place. I think they just get the slot.
Well, M80 already took the major qual spot, so does that mean that second place gets the regional finals spot in NA?
It would have to be. That's just
a very good question that I don't know because I don't work NAL.
I mean, but the thing is, the slot is there though, right? Like the actual North American League regional finals slot is on the, like that is a hard
doesn't
lock
roll
in there.
Down.
Well, it has to. Well, M80 can't occupy 2 slots at SI.
It doesn't necessarily have to. They could just, they just get the slot and then they just distribute the points as they're outlined. So if you're second, you only get the 700.
I would imagine if M80 win, I could be completely wrong, by the way. I haven't looked into this, but this is just my guess. If M80 win North America League, whoever finished second technically won. Whoever finished third probably then gets... Oh, actually, you know what? I'm not going to go into this because I got no fucking idea. I actually genuinely, because like, it's going to create a snowball.
We don't work NAL, so we don't have to necessarily.
I don't even want to. No, not my realm. Either way, I think M8 is probably going to win it. So good luck figuring all that shit out, guys, over in North America. And very quickly, Dark Zero wildcard, they got the gauntlet run, right? Like they have to quite literally run the entire gauntlet. That's going to be the fun aspect. Not so much of your Dark Zero. For wildcard, doesn't really matter. I would imagine their 700 points means they could lose to Dark Zero and they'll still make SI. But for Dark Zero, yeah, they actually have to run the entire gauntlet to get points. And that's a shame because I love that roster. You know, I think events with like Nafe, NJR, Spirits, Citizen, yeah, they're always more fun, but I just don't see Dark Zero making 6 Invitational unless it's LCQ. I think M80 will win the whole thing and can't wait to see how they handle that. Over to Europe to follow G2 versus Gen G. I think G2 will win that quite comfortably. And Secret Falcons should be a really good game. I think just because Secret maybe weren't at their ultra best in Munich doesn't mean that you cool off on them. I think they can easily beat Falcons, but Falcons probably go in as favorites. And for Virtus Pro and BDS, it's a gauntlet run to begin for them. Those two teams, like Dark Zero and Wildcard, have to run the whole bracket. It's been a quiet year for Virtus Pro.
Sorry to interrupt you. I've had a look at the global rulebook. In the event where the winner of a regional final is also the Blast R6 major champion, then the team ranking second at that regional final will qualify to the 6 Invitational. In the event where the second place team in the regional finals is also already qualified through points, then the team in the global SI point system with the most SI points will qualify to the 6 Invitational.
Oh. Okay, interesting. Like from the region or just overall?
It says the team in the global SI point system. That could lead to some funky shit.
You could have a North America. You could have M80 win the whole thing. The team that's in second is, let's say, wildcard, and they're in on points. Do you then just get like an EU team to qual?
Yeah, that's going to be very intriguing.
Could you imagine? That'd be hilarious. Can I just say that would be fucking funny?
I'm reading that correct, right? So it says in the event where the second place team in the regional final is also already qualified through points, then the team in the global SI point system with the most SI points will qualify. I assume that's determined at the end.
There could be a chance. There could be a chance an APAC
that sounds interesting. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
NAL championship spot for SI. I don't know.
I don't know how the fuck that's gonna work, but there you go. There's the clarification.
Yeah. Quickly ran through Europe and Virtus Pro, BDS, they got the big brackets to run, which for both of those two teams, very important to run that bracket. Virtus Pro have been quiet a little bit this year, to be honest. They've only got 50 points. BDS are on 200, so they got more on the line at least. But for Virtus Pro, they like literally need to win the whole thing from, it's just not going to happen. Hasn't been their year. Interesting to see if they actually make some changes next year. That team's been together for a long time. South America League, W7M versus FaZe Clan to kick things off. Furia and NIP. Of course, FaZe, Furia have already qualified. Where is W7M? They're on 400 points. Okay, so W7M's got some work to do, guys. They got some work to do, and they got FaZe first up.
400. So
if they beat FaZe, then they're fine.
Well, true. I think a fourth could be enough, but this is also SAL. Like, you don't get any free matches. So, yeah, I think W7M have their work cut out for them. Could be challenging.
NIP's on 450 points as well. So as long as NIP can, do better than W7M, they play Furia. That's going to be really intriguing. And then there's Liquid and Loud, and dare I say, for what is a very competitive region, I just don't see how those two are going to get it done. Liquid's on 100 points. Like that again, they need to basically win the whole thing or second. I don't even think third would be enough for them, and Loud is a non-factor. They actually don't have any points. So they actually would need second or first. They need to make the grand final, and that's just not happening. So for me, it's probably then down to can both NIP and W7M qualify on points. For that to happen, they'd both have to beat their respective opponents in FaZe and Furia. And then lastly, the APL, which on Wikipedia hasn't even seeded the matches. I mean, that probably goes about
APL has
standard
been
with APL.
has been seeded behind closed doors, but if it's not on Wikipedia, we're not going to talk about it here.
Yeah. FearX, CAG, Weibo, Elevate, Enterprise, and Chiefs. Yeah, I've completely forgot about
I guess the
Elevate.
only thing to comment on without obviously revealing the actual bracket is that the seeding for it is quite funky, right? Because of the subregions.
And two of these teams have already qualified, but haven't qualified in Weibo and Enterprise. Like, their points are just so high that they're just fundamentally
This is just cash
in.
for them.
Yeah, they're just fundamentally in. And, you know, you kind of look at... So Chiefs and CAG start off in that lower bracket, right? They're going to run the gauntlet. For CAG, they're on 200 points. I would say out of the four main regions, the CAG lower bracket run is probably the one that's the most likely. Right? Like, I mean, I don't think Virtus Pro BDS can go on and win it. I don't think Liquid Loud could win it. Dark Zero Wildcard would then be the other one. But for me, CAG actually do have I could see them beating Chiefs and then beating, you know, a FearX and then beating, you know, and continuing on. I could see that even after a dismal Munich. And they will kind of need to do something like that as they are only on 200 points. So they really need a top 3. Which means they would have to win 1, 2, 3. They'd have to win 3 straight best of 3s to get into the lower bracket final, which would be then giving them 400 points. I can already envision that lower bracket semi-final is going to be CAG versus someone, and the winner gets like basically SI. My concern with a lot of these regional finals, though, guys, very quickly as we wrap up, they're designed where it's like, hey, you win, you're in SI. That's great. Seems good. Let's be completely frank. I don't think there's going to be a single team that wins their respective region that if they didn't win it, wouldn't have just got in on points anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of just kind of a marketing thing as opposed to much else. Like,
I think these are going to be fun.
You're going to be in anyway. So.
I think these are going to be fun events. Don't get me wrong. And there is still games will matter, right? Like no one is like fully locked in. And again, like you could have a FearX. Oh, and FearX are on 400. How the fuck are FearX on 400 points? You could have like a Chiefs are on 350 points as well. Who's got like no points in APAC in this regional finals? Is it like Elevate 250?
That's the lowest, no?
CAG is actually the lowest. Well, I mean, they've got someone to thank for that, but yeah, we're going to that detail. But all right, well, like I'll use the best example: Loud. In an ideal world, Loud run the gauntlet, they win the whole thing, they go to SI from 0 points to 6 invitational. That is the scenario in mind that I find very fun and entertaining. But the reality is, it's just not going to happen, right? And I'm talking about that as an example for all the 4 regions. Which,
and if you were winning it anyway, you would have got enough points.
Well, and second also
the
gives
tagline
700.
winning you're in is literally just equivalent to the points.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but there's money. It's preparation.
The prize pool is fucking insane for regional finals, by the way.
It is.
Like,
and
what is it?
It's LAN as well. You know, for all of the regions.
Like, it's 115k USD per region. Like, it's big money.
It is again
52k if you win the event USD. Like, especially the APAC teams, like that is a massive amount of money.
And the one last thing I will leave this on as we wrap up is for these teams, you don't want to leave it to the unknown and you don't want to leave it to the 1%. You don't go into this being like, no, we're fine, right? We're on 600 points. We're chilling. Like if you're Enterprise, you're on 600 points right now. There is a world in which you lose and you're out. And maybe 600 points misses. I'm just saying, you go into this event and into these games with the idea of wanting to play your best. And also, if you do well, to prepare for SI. So I don't, by no means am I sitting here thinking these events do not matter. I just think it's going to be a world in which we get to the grand final, and the grand final is probably going to be a bit of a fizz, just because it's not, you know, at that point those two teams are probably both in, or one's in, or whatever. But the event themselves for the 4 regions absolutely will matter. They're going to be exciting. The teams are going to go into it wanting to win, wanting to do well, to secure their position as early as possible, as quick as possible. They will care, they will show up, and that's the main thing. So we're going to get some really good games. We're going to get some good Siege. I can't wait for APL to get, again, another LAN. And if I'm going to be honest, I think a better LAN than maybe what we even had for the major qualifier LAN at PAX Melbourne, Australia, where it was a little bit scuffed. This is going to be a bit more streamlined. We know what we're getting in terms of the bracket. People know who they're playing. I think it's going to be a better time overall. I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to Six Invitational, which, you know, as is always the case this time of year. And then you've still got LCQs later on to just solidify everything. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think, again, with that weird caveat around the whole NA call spot, that it kind of backs into the point where you really don't know if you're down and out, especially if you're like right on the brink when it comes to points.
Someone is going to miss out by like 50 points.
Potentially, yeah, it could be the case.
I mean, like, statistically, that has to happen, right? Like, statistically, there's going to be a team or two somewhere, somehow. And we saw this last year, literally. 3-way tie. 2 teams missed out in the 3-way. Like, was it one? No, 1 team missed out. But statistically, 1 or 2 teams are going to be on that precipice, either 50 points, either tied, or 100 points. One of them, pick your poison. It's going to happen. You don't want to be that team. You don't want to be that team. You know, it might be 550 points, and, you know, you might get to 500 or 550 or 600.
And just to clarify as well, the tiebreaker for the global points is 10 of them, but the top 2 are head-to-head record in the 25 season, which could be intriguing when you have all the APAC teams potentially on the brink. And then second to that, which could probably be the big difference maker, is then total major points. There are a lot of teams that could end up very close to that margin that did not go to the major and have 0 points. So
yeah,
I think the funniest thing that could happen here is CAG. They like fucking get like 400 points at regional finals, right? And they're like right on the precipice, and they're like one of the few teams that are going to be in that kind of potential range that actually went to the major with 50 points, and that could be a potential difference maker. But who knows? There's so many different variables.
All right, with that, we are going to close up shop here. Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you to those that have made it through, I think what's ended up basically bang on an hour here for episode 37. We got a lot to go through. Obviously, we had the major, the operation, regional finals. I would say probably the next episode that we will do will most likely be Six Invitational preview. So that'll be sometime in January, which I know that's a little bit of a break, but naturally going into the Christmas season, you're going to have a little bit of time, right? So I think it actually works out perfectly. And for those that have made it this far or potentially just decided to skip right to the end, welcome. What I'm going to give to you guys is a little bit of a heads up when it comes to the the wildcards giveaway. If you write in the comments, not in relation to the giveaway, but you just write something in the comments that you potentially have said you've kind of watched towards the end, you might get a leg up. I'll just leave that one there. And obviously, as always, big thank you to our Patreons. We'll go and give them a shout out. They've been fabulous. Unfortunately, we didn't get to film any content in Munich. It was just kind of the event where things didn't really sync up. Not a lot of time off, especially once the event got going. I mean, 6 on 6 didn't even film over there. And we brought the bloody equipment for them. So I don't want to hear any slander from Parker about, he got us to bring the equipment, didn't film anything, but neither did we. But we'll see you definitely, on social media over the next few months, and we'll be back with a new episode for Six Invitational preview, or potentially around like LCQ time, maybe, depending on how that all pans out. Not too sure, but big thank you to everyone for watching. I'm going to go from the Patreon. Much love as always to everyone. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and you might get rewarded with a skin code. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.